Do you like goals? Do you like possession? Do you like clean sheets?
You like jazz? No, that's no good.
We'll be taking a look at the tactic I used in my recent one-shots challenge, where we secured a top 4 finish with Aston Villa in the first season. This is not a plug-and-play tactic, so whilst we'll look at the specifics, I'll also be discussing the philosophy and approach behind building a possession-based tactic, so you too can create something suitable for your own team. Before we start, we need to understand what is meant by positional play. This is not the subtitle for the Kama Sutra, but rather a philosophy around in-possession movement and space, often associated with Pep Guardiola and the total football lineage. In simple terms, it's about occupying areas horizontally and vertically to create passing angles and disrupt your opponent's defensive structure. For more reading on the subject, check out the recommendations in the description below. Whilst there are many ways to interpret how to divide the pitch, almost all approaches divide the pitch horizontally into 5 distinct corridors: the flanks, the half space, and the middle. In the attacking phase, we want to have players occupying each corridor. This, for me, is the starting point of any possession-based tactic. Identify our best attacking players and work out how I can fit as many as possible into the starting lineup. So let's take a look at Villa's attacking options. Based on their attributes, traits, and my own personal opinion, I've loosely categorised each player. Emi Buendia is creative, Ollie Watkins is a goal threat, and Bertie Traore exists. We can map the players onto the pitch, based on the positions they are comfortable playing, so we can get an idea of our coverage. For now, we'll consider the half spaces and the middle as one zone. On the surface it looks quite balanced, but we have a lot of players in wide positions who like to cut inside, and therefore can't be relied upon to maintain width consistently. With this considered, we're quite lacking on the flanks, and this is where our fullbacks will come in. Thankfully, we've got quite a few players here, all who are considerably better going forwards than they are defensively. And when we map them onto the pitch, we now have a lot more balance. Picking a starting 5 out of these options might end up looking something like this, with Watkins spearheading the attack, fullbacks providing the width, and a mixture of creativity and goal threat from the half spaces. Whilst that gives us a good spread horizontally, we also need to consider vertical depth. Obviously, players will move in and out of space during play, but we want to design our tactical approach to generate depth and create passing triangles. It's all good and well having an attacking structure, but we need to be able to get the ball into those positions to begin with. You will often hear of 2 common build-up shapes, 2-3-5 and 3-2-5. The 2-3-5 spreads the central midfield rank wider, providing lateral support which can help create opportunities for overloads in the wide areas. You also have more players closer to the opposition box. This is not just useful in possession, but when you lose the ball, if the opposition bypasses your initial press, you have a strong second line in position to swarm. It is not without risk, however. The 2-man defensive line can be risky in the initial build-up, and you will often see a midfielder split the defenders to help this. When recycling possession, a mistake here is likely to be devastating. There are also massive gaps on the flanks, ripe for exploitation by a well-organised counter-attacking side. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the 3-2-5 is the inverse of this. With an extra defender, there is more width to the rest defence, providing good protection on the flanks. It is also very effective for baiting the press during the initial build-up as play starts deeper, and creates space in the wider areas for the wing-backs to drop deep in aid progression. This does place additional burden on the central midfielders, however, who are likely to sit narrower. This can be useful in creating a midfield box for central overloads, but also gives them a lot of space to cover laterally. As a result, the second line of pressing is weaker and can be easily overrun without discipline. That lateral weakness also means that the wide players can become isolated when in possession. There's a lot to take in there, but let's see what this looks like in practice. This is the basic shell I used in my Villa save. Starting up front, a single striker occupying the central corridor. I mainly use an advanced forward, but depending on game state, this might change to a complete forward or deep lying forward based on how involved in build-up I need them to be. In the half spaces, 1 creator, 1 goal threat. The actual positions and roles used will change depending on who plays. Bailey or Traore as an attacking inverted winger who sits narrow off the right. Ramsey as a shadow striker, providing a similar goal-scoring threat, but from a more central starting position. Buendia as a trequartista, who will drop deep to show for the ball, but will otherwise be more attacking than an advanced playmaker. Coutinho as a supporting inverted winger, who sits narrow off the left. On the flanks we have complete wingbacks. They are wingbacks in name only, functionally performing as wingers. Every single part of the front five is encouraged to roam from position, either baked into the role or added as a player instruction. This helps us achieve some of those positional play elements, with players actively looking to drift into pockets of space when they become available. To get the vertical depth we spoke about earlier, overlap left is added. This will rein in Buendia a little, whilst giving the left wing back permission to be a little bit more cavalier. All other in-possession instructions, shorter passing, fairly narrow width, and play out of defence are there to encourage a possession-based philosophy. The decision to go with a 3-4-3 formation and our transition and out-of-possession instructions are all informed by this front five. With coverage across all 5 corridors, we're in a good position to engage a counter-press. As both wing-backs will be involved here, we are very vulnerable on the flanks, and so the 3-2 shape will help mitigate this. This could be achieved in a back 4, with a half-back splitting the defenders, but that then puts onus on the wing-backs to cover a lot of ground, and inhibits their attacking freedom. A back 3 is both simpler and more structurally sound in transition. And structure is a theme here. It's the reason I don't use wide centre-backs. Rest defence is important. I don't want my centre-backs over-committing to providing support further up the pitch. Against teams playing with a single striker, the outside centre-backs will essentially need to be on guard to provide cover should the striker or the winger on their side get free of their marker. Against teams playing 2 up top, they have direct responsibility for a striker, with the internal centre-back responsible for cover. We want to play out of defence, and have 3 centre-backs, so asking our goalkeeper to distribute to them just makes sense. We've spoken about how the 3-2 shape can be effective in baiting the press, and this should help us establish possession and progress the ball methodically. We've also talked about the lateral burden the 3-2 shape puts on our defensive midfielders, and how it weakens the secondary phase of a counter-press. For this reason, we will revert to a mid-block once the initial press is bypassed. Both defensive midfielders are encouraged to tackle harder. I'd rather they engage in the dark arts when the need arises than passively allow the opposition to walk through. Positional discipline is important for our defensive midfielders, both in and out of possession. As true two-way players, they need to be able to contribute effectively in all phases, and so it's important their roles don't see them drift too far from where they need to be. A deep-lying playmaker on the opposite side to the trequartista gives us someone who can help dictate the tempo and act as a fulcrum, alongside a general all-rounder. With 3 centre-backs behind them, we don't necessarily need either of our defensive midfielders to have a defend duty, but will occasionally do so when facing a team with an attacking midfielder. We'll look to funnel the opposition out wide, despite numerical superiority in central areas. The reason here is twofold. 1, I want us to maintain our compactness. I trust our centre-backs to deal with the crosses. 2, the further away from our goal the opposition are, the better our chance of not conceding. Opposition instructions are kept to a minimum. If we're struggling for possession, we might target the opposition midfielder who has received the most passes with heavier pressing, and that's it. Ultimately, the goal is to impose our style of play on the opposition. As you can see, everything falls into place based on the initial principle. We've set up our attacking channels, identified the weaknesses this creates, and taken sensible measures to mitigate them. This doesn't just help to simplify the process, but also ensures a cohesive approach, where each phase of the game is supported by the others. The results are clear to see. We finished 4th, considerably higher than the pre-season prediction of 13th, and our final position was in line with expected points, showing this was not a fluke. We scored 75 goals, that's just 1 shy of exactly 2 goals per game, and good enough for the 4th best record in the league. It must be noted that we did outperform our XG by a considerable margin. There's definitely an element of good fortune here, but it's also a feature of the tactical approach. We had a clear plan to ensure our best players were in the right positions, and this can be shown by the distribution of shots and XG across our squad. Make sure the right players are getting the opportunities, and you should outperform your XG. We had the stingiest defence, conceding only 29 goals all season, and our performance was a combination of two factors. We controlled the ball, minimising opportunities for our opposition, and we were active in winning it back. As a result, we were the only team who were both reliable in possession and frequently won the ball. In the case of the latter, we were particularly good at winning the ball back high in our own half. Poor risky situations could develop. There was more than one way to skin a cat, which is great news for feline flaying freaks and a little disconcerting for the rest of us. Sorry, I digress. The point is, if you're looking to build your own possession-based tactic, there are many ways to go about it, but I heartily recommend this approach. Identify your best attacking players, get them into positions where they are most effective, ensure you have balanced coverage across all 5 corridors, and build a support structure around it. Let me know in the comments below the best tactic you've created, and what roles you've most enjoyed in FM23. If you're feeling generous, consider subscribing for more Football Manager content. Until next time.